The year was 1925. The United States was deep in its alcohol prohibition era. But during this time, something far more addicting than liquor was on the rise. A weekend ritual, a southern obsession, a force that got people more rowdy, more devoted, and more likely to fight than any barroom drink ever could. It was the rise of college football. In the hills of East Tennessee and in the heart of Kentucky, it wasn't just a game, it was religion on grass. And as the sport grew, so did the passions and the rivalries. This is a story of how a single barrel became the prize for one of the fiercest battles the South had to offer. This is the story of Tennessee versus Kentucky, the Battle of the Beer Barrel. The rivalry between Tennessee and Kentucky was already decades old by the time the barrel came along. Their first matchup took place in 1893. The Wildcats would go on to dominate the newly formed Tennessee squad 56-0, a blowout that still stands as the largest margin of victory in series history. But the Vols would return the favor 6 years later, earning their first win in the series with a 12-0 shutout, tying things up at 1 win apiece and handing Kentucky their first loss in 2 years. By the time the 1925 season rolled around, the rivalry was about as even as it gets. Kentucky led the all-time series with 9 wins. Tennessee had 8, and the teams had played to a tie 3 different times. In 1925, Kentucky claimed another win, but what happened after the game is what made history. The Wildcats rolled a barrel onto the field, painted half blue and half orange, and introduced the college football world to a brand new tradition. After the barrel's introduction, momentum in the rivalry swung hard toward Tennessee. In 1926, after just 1 season as an assistant, a young Army officer named General Neyland was promoted to head coach of the Volunteers. From his hiring in 1926 to the end of his coaching career in 1952, the Vols dominated Kentucky, going 21-1-5 against the Wildcats. The only blemish during this stretch came in 1935, when Neyland was temporarily reassigned to military service in Panama and stepped away from his coaching duties. Without their general on the sideline, Tennessee finally slipped, and Kentucky seized its lone victory of the era. One of the most crucial showdowns in the rivalry came in 1950, when the undefeated Kentucky Wildcats rolled into Knoxville to take on the 8-1 Tennessee Volunteers. Both teams were entering the game with national title hopes. In front of a packed Neyland Stadium on one of the coldest days ever recorded in Knoxville, on a frozen Shield Watkins field in a game that saw 21 total fumbles, Tennessee shut Kentucky down. The Vols gutted out a 7-0 win and one of the most physically brutal matchups in the history of the rivalry. Both schools would go on to claim a national title that year, but this game told the real story. On that frozen field in Knoxville, Tennessee proved who the true champion was. After Neyland stepped down in 1952, Kentucky began to claw back. Their breakthrough came in 1953 in what would be Bear Bryant's final game as the Wildcats head coach. In a back-and-forth battle, Kentucky defeated Tennessee 27-21, snapping the streak and reclaiming the barrel for the first time in 18 years. The Vols didn't take the thought of losing their beloved barrel too well. As legend has it, Tennessee fans stole the barrel back after that game. The students stole the barrel from Kentucky's trophy case, and in its place left a piece of toilet paper that read, "Notice the phantom strikes again. The mighty Wildcats of Kentucky, who should feel mighty lucky at the idea of beating Tennessee because the game was won by the referee. So send old Hardy back to UT, and what do you think he will see? But the cherished keg from where it ought to be. While as for the keg, we shall return it, when the almighty Wildcats really earn it." Kentucky would go on a strong run, posting a 7-3-1 record over the next decade in an attempt to tighten the rivalry. By the mid-1960s, the all-time series stood at Tennessee 32, Kentucky 18, with 9 ties. But that would mark the end of Kentucky's push to close the gap. From 1965 to 1998, Tennessee took complete control of the rivalry, going 30-4 over the Wildcats in that span. Year after year, the Barrel stayed in Knoxville. And then, in 1998, everything changed. Just weeks before the Philip Fulmer-led Tennessee team would cap off its perfect season with a national championship, tragedy struck. 2 Kentucky players and an Eastern Kentucky player were involved in a fatal alcohol-related car accident. In a show of unity, both athletic departments agreed. The Barrel should be retired. Though the trophy may have been gone, the rivalry never ended. For the next 12 years, Tennessee's reign of dominance over the Wildcats would continue as head coach Philip Fulmer would go undefeated against Kentucky throughout his entire tenure. The most dramatic showdown came in 2007 when the 8-3 Volunteers traveled to Lexington to take on the 7-5 Wildcats with a trip to the SEC Championship on the line. Tennessee made an immediate statement. On the very first play from scrimmage, quarterback Eric Ainge launched a 65-yard touchdown bomb to open the scoring.
Foster at the 20, the 15, Foster may go at the 5, touchdown Tennessee!
The Vols jumped out to a 24-7 halftime lead, looking every bit like a team destined for Atlanta. But in the second half, Kentucky flipped the script. The Wildcats outscored Tennessee 24-7, tying the game at 31 and forcing overtime in Lexington.
To overtime. That's where we're headed.
What followed was one of the wildest finishes in Tennessee-Kentucky history. In the first overtime, both teams traded touchdown passes and kicked their extra points.
Man coverage. Oh! What a grab by Gerald Jones, the freshman.
In the second, Tennessee's momentum faltered as Ainge threw a costly interception on the second play of the drive.
Intercepted.
But the Vols defense came up huge, forcing Kentucky into a field goal situation, leading to one of the most iconic moments of the decade.
Down to this. Lona Siebers, right foot, 35-yarder. Here we go. Picked up after the block. Tennessee rumbling. Still throwing that ball. It's still loose. My goodness, could it be? Oh, that may be a face mask. Multiple flags are down at the 35-yard line. The field goal blocked, and Tennessee had a chance to run it back.
Are you kidding me?
And it still wasn't over. By the time overtime number 4 rolled around, it wasn't just a game anymore. It was a war of endurance. Tennessee struck first, scoring a touchdown and converting the mandatory 2-point attempt, taking a 52-44 lead.
Steps up, throws, dumps, hits it. 2-point conversion. Austin Rogers, and we'll be back. Kentucky must answer after this.
Kentucky would respond by scoring a touchdown of their own. However, on the Wildcats' 2-point conversion, Tennessee would force and recover a fumble.
The 2-point conversion to force the 5th overtime. Pressure. Woodson has room. Tackle from behind. It's fumbled, and Tennessee is headed to Atlanta. A game to remember in Lexington. 23 straight. Tennessee has beaten Kentucky.
In a game that lasted roughly 5 hours, Tennessee survived 52-50 in 4 overtimes, clinching the SEC East title and one of the wildest wins in program history. The Barrel may have been retired by then, but in games like this, the spirit of the rivalry was alive and well. It wouldn't be until 2011 that Kentucky would finally get a taste of revenge. The Wildcats edged out Tennessee 10-7 in Lexington, snapping a brutal 26-game losing streak, the longest in the history of the rivalry. From 2011 to 2024, not much has changed in the win column. Tennessee continues to own the rivalry. Sure, Kentucky picked up a couple wins, including a stunner in Knoxville in 2020. But more often than not, it was Tennessee walking away with the bragging rights. Even in down years, even in coaching transitions, the Vols still find a way. Because in this rivalry, history doesn't care about context. It only remembers who kept the barrel, even if the barrel no longer shows up. We've now gone a full century since that painted keg first rolled out onto the field. 100 years of hits, heartbreaks, and hijinks. 100 years of orange and blue smashing into each other every fall, fighting not just for a win, but for pride, tradition, and the memory of a beer barrel that somehow became sacred. The rivalry is still here. The hatred is still real. The games still matter. But the barrel doesn't. Not anymore. And maybe that's fine for some. Maybe some people think rivalries don't need trophies. Maybe they think a painted piece of wood doesn't mean anything. But it meant something once, and it still could. So here's my request. From one fan to the powers that be, bring back the barrel. Let it be ceremonial. Let it be empty. Let it be safe, secured, supervised, whatever it's got to be. But bring it back. Because some trophies aren't about what's inside. They're about what they represent. And this one's about 100 years of hate, pride, tradition, and memories we'll never forget. Tennessee versus Kentucky, the Battle of the Beer Barrel. Here's to the next 100.